Well, My Hero Academia is now over with season 7, which kind of sucks because we only have one season left of this anime and it's going to all wrap up next year with its final season. I don't think I'm ready for it. This anime has been great. It's had so many good moments. I love the characters and I honestly just it's going to be so sad when it's over. But in this video, we're going to break down season 7, which covered the Star and Stripe arc, the UA Trader arc, and part of the Final War arc. So we'll go over the season, the fights that happened during it, some of the big character moments and development. And this is all coming after last season where we got the Paranormal Liberation arc and the Dark Hero arc, which I still think the Dark Hero arc should have went a little longer, and I wanted to see more of Vigilante Deku. However, this season was still fantastic to say the least. And it was awesome to kind of go off everything last season where we saw Deku go back to UA, calm down, be with his friends, be with his family, and get ready for the final fight, which all set up this arc with the final fight and everything kind of going to shit for both the heroes and the villains. With the season starting off with Star and Stripes coming in and the big battle that she had during it. Honestly, wasn't expecting her story to be over and done with so quickly, but it was great to see her come in, take on that role, kind of abandon her government to go fight for her hero, the person that got her into being the greatest hero in America, All Might, and I love seeing that. Seeing her fight was just really showing off how strong Shigaraki has become because of the fact that he's just facing her without a problem. He's taking the hits, jumping around, doing everything he can to avoid these attacks because All For One wants Star and Stripes' quirk because her quirk allows her to declare a new rule on her given surroundings after touching it and saying its name, which is so OP. She literally turns air into her weapon, which I thought was insane, and I would have loved to see more of her in action so we could have seen more of her quirk in different scenarios. But for the short 2-episode fight, it was pretty insane to watch how much power she could throw out. Like, she's grabbing the Tiamat missiles, throwing them at Shigaraki. Shigaraki literally surviving them, and Star and Stripes doing everything she can to protect her allies by taking the hit, knowing that she'd die by taking that hit. And I love that she left her body vulnerable while using New Order in order to oppose all quirks inside all of Shigaraki's body, making it so he loses all those quirks, at the same time cannot use New Order. So everything All For One wanted in this moment after this giant fight, he wanted that quirk, he wanted it for himself because he would have become even more OP. She refused to let him have it by sacrificing her life and her quirk to do it. And if that doesn't scream a true hero, I don't know what else does. And her sacrifice and thinking saved a lot of people from dying because of her quirk, and she really became one of the greatest heroes. But in that fight, it was also awesome to see that we got to see all these really big moments with Shigaraki as well, with him not knowing if he's Shigaraki still or All For One, because they've kind of combined into a new being as All For One's personality starts to take over Shigaraki. He's confused, he's trying to figure out, and this was kind of the start for the season. But what is going on with Shigaraki? Is he All For One? Is he still Shigaraki? But it's both of them mending together as All For One tries to take over his body and become even stronger than he was before. And I love how we also got in this during the big fight in the last moments that young Tomura saying Midoriya after hearing a hero will always be there, which made me think that Shigaraki in this moment realizes he needs help because All For One is taking over his body, which maybe it's not Shigaraki himself, but it's his young kid persona who's still broken inside. He needs a hero. He needs someone to save him because that's all he is a traumatized child that was taken and manipulated and turned into this master villain by the world's biggest demon lord. So it's really interesting to see what they did in this beginning, kind of setting up the stakes for the season, how strong Shigaraki was gone, and showing us a great hero be taken down so easily. But at that moment, we catch up with everyone at UA, and then we find out who the UA trader has been the entire time. And honestly, still was not expecting it to be Oyama. That was a twist. I always kind of had weird vibes from him, especially after some of the earlier seasons where we saw him doing kind of weird things, but I never saw him for a trader. I thought a teacher was going to be a traitor, not a student. So finding out that Oyama was a traitor was interesting, especially because he was born quirkless, just like Deku, and his parents found All For One to give him a quirk so that he could have a normal life, but in turn, he became All For One's spy and little tool that he could use whenever he wanted, which is kind of funny because they gave him a quirk that didn't work with his body. So that's why his stomach was always hurting, because the quirk didn't fit with him. And it's so ironic too that this kid has a quirk that was given to him, and they gave him such a lame quirk. They could have given him anything else, but they gave him the navel laser. Why? Why? If All For One gave him this quirk and he wasn't born with it, why didn't he get something cooler? But I do love in the moments when we're learning about the traitors that Deku points out that he helped Bakugo and Tokoyami in the training camp. He helped them. He was still helping his friends even though he had given the villains information, as well as leaving cheese for Deku at his window. That was where I found him a little bit creepy. He still did that. He still helped Deku. He still was trying to befriend Deku. And I love that because Deku realizes that he wanted to be a hero. Oyama might have been committing a crime. That doesn't make him a villain for life. He was a kid being used, so he could still do better. And in the end, he can still be the secret weapon for tricking All For One. So I really like how that kind of worked out, because they used him to trick the biggest villain of them all. Seeing that the class was still going to stand up for their friend, they still knew he wasn't a bad person. He might have been being used, he might have been the traitor, but that doesn't mean he was a villain. I really liked how they focused on this, because in the society we've learned that a lot of times, a lot of these people who become villains are because they did one wrong mistake. Look at the gentle criminal. When he tried to save someone, fucked up, and got someone killed, they turned him into a villain for life. Instead of like dealing with this sad circumstances that happen or these traumatic events, instead of dealing with it like proper people, they just, oh, you're a criminal, you're bad for life, you can never be a hero. To be fair, technically he put himself in the life of crime. However, it's mostly because his reputation was ruined and he could no longer be the hero he wanted to be. And he was scared of being forgotten about. Like, this is what ruins people's reputations and ruins them. And this is why you have so many villains, because you turn these people into villains. Honestly, it all comes down to society, and society sucks. But it was great to see in these moments how the hero's plans went into action after we found out about the traitor and Star and Stripes lost, because this is the moment that we've all been waiting for, where the heroes turn back on the villains. Once again, we already went through one war arc, and now we're going through the second war arc. And the whole plan was to get Shigaraki and the rest of the League of Villains separated from one another, because otherwise they'd be way too strong. And that is so true. How are you going to stop a bunch of villains who have massively OP quirks if you don't separate them? And I love that we got Monoma's time to shine using General Kurogiri's quirk by getting him to copy it and then teleport everyone everywhere, which was great. Like, this is a great moment showing this side character that we see kind of be a pain in the ass to everyone else, get his moment to shine, show that he can actually be a hero, and showing what use he could be to everyone else. And I thought it was great because they also used him with Eraser to help Aizawa prevent Shigaraki from using Decay. And I think that was like a great moment for these characters, showing how smart they are, showing how they're actually able to do some of these things, and also just seeing how it all works together. The fact that the only villain they were going to stop Shigaraki, which honestly, out of all the quirks we've seen, is the most OP. It's great to see that that is their plan they came up with, just to push the main villain out of the way, even putting him on a giant freaking floating island so that they couldn't touch the ground. I love how they kind of did the reveals during their big plan when everything was happening, like how Shinso was the one that made it. Oyama and his parents weren't lying because they were telling the truth through his brainwashing quirk. So it was great to see him get his time to shine. Both Shinso and Monoma coming in to have hero moments was fantastic. Kind of seeing some of the characters that aren't class 1A getting their time was fantastic, and I love seeing the little side characters get moments like this too, because it expands the universe, showing that we're not just focused on this one class, we're focused on everyone around them. But in the end of their plan, they set everything up. Shoto versus Dabi, Endeavor and Hawks and others versus All For One. You know, then it was supposed to be Deku versus Shigaraki, but Toga kind of changed that for a moment when she dragged him into her area, putting everyone in danger, because it would have been Uraraka versus Toga, which in the end it ultimately was. But it was fantastic kind of see these moments where like the heroes are going to win. Their plans are coming together. Everything is awesome. So, boom, everything got changed, and now everything's kind of going to shit. Which it kind of does that multiple times during the season, where it's like, okay, heroes have a 1-up, villains take, heroes have the 1-up, not anymore. Heroes have the 1-up, not anymore. Villains have the 1-up, heroes have the 1-up. So they kind of flip-flop back and forth as this arc really pushed the characters forward, and really made us question if the villains were truly that evil. And as we go into the first fight of the season, well, kind of fight with Toga versus Deku, we had some pretty good moments with like Danger Sense not picking up Toga as a danger because her attacks were coming from affection and not wanting to kill, which is true because we learned later in the season that the reason she liked Deku so much was the fact that she had a crush on someone that looked like him, and I really like how they kind of played with that, because that was like the thing in the beginning of the season. Why is Danger Sense not going off? And then we find out at the end, and it makes all sense now. Toga liked Deku because Deku looked like someone she used to like. So really interesting to see how they kind of tied into the story and how they kind of pushed Toga's character forward. Really, they pushed her character forward a lot in the season. Same with Dabi/Toya, so it was awesome to see like what they did with them. Even though it wasn't like a massive fight, it was great to see some of the moments during it, like Deku trying to reason with her because she doesn't want to hurt someone he loves, even though that's him just playing with her, but he's legitimately doesn't want to hurt this girl. Like, she likes him, he doesn't want to hurt her, so he's trying to reason with the villain, which is what Uraraka does the entire season with her. And I love how we kind of got to see some of Toga's backstory during this section as well, but we'll talk more about her backstory when we get to the main fight with Uraraka. And I do love at the end of the fight there, when they send Deku away to go after Shigaraki, Sue realizes Deku must get away so a precious secret doesn't get out, which is just Uraraka's crush for him. I love that. I love how they tie it all back into the Uraraka versus Toga fight later on, but this was just like all the setup for that, and I didn't realize it was all the setup for that until coming to make this video. So they had so many little hints in the beginning about what was going to go on in the story, and it was perfect. It was so good, especially when we got to the Dabi versus Shoto fight, aka Toya versus Shoto, and then having Toya's backstory revealed about what happened to him after he burned to his crisp in the fire. Because like everything with the Todorokis, every single goddamn scene was emotional. Every fight, every moment had so many good moments. I think the Todorokis had some of the best story in all of My Hero Academia, and it's kind of insane of how well it was done. And I love how the fight started off with Dabi and Shoto, because it just kind of has Dabi mad the fact that Endeavor didn't come and it was Shoto and his sidekicks. Like, it's not the people he wanted to take out. Even though if he hurts them, he hurts Endeavor, it's not the person he wanted to fight. And Shoto literally just wants to stop his brother. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to get into like some insane fight. He just wants to stop his brother. I feel like at the same time with a lot of the moments we got during this is Shoto never really got to know Toya. Toya died when he was still really young, so he never got to live with his older brother. And I think this is one of those things where it's like, you see this traumatized person in front of you, you find out he's family, and you want to know him. You want to know why he's doing what he's doing, and you kind of want to bring him back into the light, because that's what a hero does. You bring people back to the light, and you try to get them out of the darkness. Toya is way too far gone, and we find all about his backstory and why he's so far gone, because Toya was saved by Garaki, you know, All For One's doctor. He was in a coma for 3 years, so at this point his family had moved on. All For One wanted to use him, but Toya was so obsessed with becoming a hero and his father that he just left, and he burnt down the entire center with the kids and left on his own, which was kind of insane. On top of it, All For One wanted him to be one of his vessels, which ultimately failed because he was obsessed with his father. But that was like part of his psyche breaking. He was gone for 3 years. His family wasn't there. The biggest villain of them all tried to recruit him. Like the fact that he learned how to control his fire, even though it was burning him. Finding out that he was supposed to die and he knew it. Like he is slowly burning himself to death, but he keeps going because he wasn't trying to survive. He was burning with resentment that kept him going. So instead of like that fuel to live, he was fueling himself with hate. And that hatred consumed him for his family, especially when he went to go see them and he realized they moved on, they left. You know, all he wanted with his family, his dad to be proud of him, and he got abandoned. Which honestly, if you thought your child had burned to a crisp in a fire long ago, of course you're going to move on. You're going to go on with your life. You're going to be sad. You're going to always have the pain inside of you. But at this point, Toya's psyche was already broken, so he doesn't see it as, oh, I can come back into their life, realize that I'm there, and they can accept me back and be happy. But no, he's like, my family moved on. They don't care about me. We're gone. But that's also because Endeavor started training Shoto and making him that hero, so of course he feels betrayed. Which I felt bad. I really felt bad for Toya in all of this because it's all Endeavor's fault. It really is. It's just him being a terrible father that turned him into this villain, abandoning and abusing his child. That's the only reason he is where he is. It turned Toya into the flames of death, which is honestly insane. And by the end of this season, he looked like a monster. He burned himself to a crisp. All he wanted to do was kill his family. And I love how in the fight, we realize that we find out that Shoto made his power his own, just like Deku said back during the UA Sports Festival. Really making it so he became his own hero with his own goals rather than following Endeavor. He became what he wanted to be. When his family kept moving ahead, his friends were always beside him, so he always had someone to back him up, cheer him on, and he found his new move, his ultimate flash fire fist, created fire that was cold by mixing his hot and cold together, which froze Dabi for a second. It didn't last long, but it froze him, and I thought that was awesome. It shows what kind of hero you could be by using both sides of yourself. So it's just awesome to see what he could do with his fire and ice power. He's getting that cool new move, but also didn't help that Toya was also able to do the same thing. Toya had that power in him all along. He could have used it. If he knew how to unlock it, he could have used it. But of course, that was only the first part of Dabi versus Shoto. We'll talk about the Todoroki family versus Toya at the end, because that was a whole nother emotional moment to talk about. But because we're going in order, we're just going to go to that one first and move on to the next one, which is Endeavor, Hawks, Jiro, and Tokoyami versus All For One. Not the lineup I thought I would see fighting the Demon Lord, but honestly a great one. More or less because we got Hawks and Endeavor against All For One, trying to fight him without losing their quirks. Like, this is the biggest villain you're fighting. You know he can take your quirks, and you have to be very careful or he will take your quirk, which happened to Hawks at the end of the season. F Hawks, but they tried. They really did. At least All For One didn't take a bunch of them. I guess that was at least some success. And you know, during the fight, you could really tell how kind of evil All For One is, using Toya and Shoto against Endeavor, getting under his skin, making him get mad, making him lose his control to go after him so that he's not thinking as clearly as it should be. Even telling Endeavor that he took Toya's body so that Endeavor would think his son is dead, which ends up getting Endeavor's side ripped out because Endeavor is getting chunked away, which this fight, watching Endeavor literally lose an arm, get his side ripped out, and get beaten to a pulp by All For One was absolutely insane. But we did get to see him have his quirk awakening, which was awesome. And even during the fight, having Hawks get saved by Jiro and Tokoyami and get support from them was great, because it shows that Tokoyami and Jiro can kind of fight with the big league. Like, Tokoyami, of course, has Dark Shadow. He's going to be able to fight with the big leagues. That's a freaking powerful attack. It is awesome. Jiro, on the other hand, is more of a support character. We don't really see her doing a lot of bigger things, but she did get blasted in the end, losing one of her earphone jacks, and I kind of wonder what that means for her quirk. Will it come back? Like, will it come back, or does she permanently only have one now for the end of time? I'm sure there's a support item that could probably replace it, but I'm very curious what they're going to do with her afterwards. Because during the fight, she had great moments. You know, calling out to All For One, saying she doesn't care what he's saying about fear, strength, weakness. All she cares about is that it's his fault that her friends are crying, showing how the Class 1A are motivating each other no matter what. They care for one another, so they're going to fight the villains because the villains hurt their friends. and it just shows what they all mean to each other. And I think that was just a great moment to show what's happening. But during that moment, it was kind of insane to also see All For One's quirks consciousnesses breaking through, which I guess that could be happening because of what Jiro did with their sound attacks. That could be what activated them, but it was very interesting to see what happened, and we didn't really see anything else come for it after that point, but it was a cool moment. Even seeing Tokiyami get a badass moment by decking All For One. All For One getting beaten up by teenagers is kind of funny. I mean, he's still all powerful because then he's able to break free and almost kill them all. But Endeavor comes in, loses his arm, like I said before, and beats the crap out of All For One, where his quirk awakening happened. And like, this was just like a great moment because it's Endeavor's kind of growth here with his atonement and responsibility that he needs to do. There were so many things he did bad with his life. Now he needs to fix it. He needs to be better. Villains expose his weakness with Toya. He's got to push past that. And in this moment, we even learn why he became a hero. It was all because his dad was dying trying to save a girl from evil, ended up with both of them dead. But he wanted to become someone strong. And then that kind of gave him an inferiority complex, which ironically kept him alive because he kept fighting against his own weakness. He wanted to push forward. He wanted to be better. And I really like how they kind of showed his character. His character is way more complex than it seems. He's not just a dick. He wants to be better, but he's holding himself back. Instead of being more open to other people, he pushes them away. But it really took sacrificing his own life to take on All For One from to realize what there is. He realizes the future he's fighting for his son. About to sacrifice his own life, burning All For One until All For One uses Ares Rewind quirk because of the one shot they had left to bring back his body. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. And the fact that that little shot gave All For One Ares quirk is kind of insane, even though he can't control it, so it was just progressively making him younger this entire season. It kind of shows what's going on. All this man wanted to do was get younger, defeat the heroes, so that he could reach Shigaraki and become whole. Because he's already passed the torch to Shigaraki, he just needs to make sure that Shigaraki doesn't fall for the trap. So he's not fully confident in Shigaraki's ability yet, but once he can become whole with them, he's good to go. Because then no one's going to be able to stop him. Like, in these moments, we literally find out All For One's dream is he can make it so no one else can have their dream. Like, what the hell? He's just an asshole. Like, his dream is just to make sure no one else can have theirs come true. This is what makes him a villain. He's just a monster. He's just evil to the core. He's probably the only pure evil villain out of all the characters we've met, because everyone else has kind of had their own motivation, the reason they were turned into a villain. But he's just a monster. But like the other ones, we'll talk about the rest of his fight when we get further down the road, because that's when we see him get his ass beat for a second, but also come back around and kick everyone else's asses. And then we get the All For One versus All Might battle at the end of the season. But again, we'll get to that. There's so much to go over. And the next fight we get to talk about is probably the most devastating one out of them all, is with Bakugo versus Shigaraki. Because that did not go as I expected whatsoever. First of all, Shigaraki's body is now molded in some new creation as it can shift without a quirk, and allowing him to grow multiple limbs all over the goddamn place. Like, first of all, how is that possible? This is like the only part of the anime that's kind of gotten really confusing, where everyone has a quirk. We don't really see anyone with like body morphing things except Shigaraki here because of whatever Garaki and All For One did to him. He turned into a monster. They literally turned this guy into a monster, but it's also All For One's new body. So I guess All For One turned himself into a bigger monster than he already was. With this grotesque monster, it was awesome to see Bakugo get his some pretty awesome moments as he fights Shigaraki. He's not doing it alone, but he's the one doing the most damage to him as the time. And honestly, during the fight, while watching Bakugo have these awesome fights, we got some great character moments that really pushed his character. Like, these last two seasons have really pushed his character from like this more arrogant, rageful person to still rageful, but thinking smart, caring about his friends, and so much more character development to go with it. I love that he kind of saw that misunderstanding breeds fear and rejection, and that he's grown as a hero, and him and Deku have gone through so much together. That they're kind of focusing on their friendship, their rivalry, where they are together as a whole, and having it that Bakugo is becoming that true hero and taking the step forward to be the hero like Deku is. He sees where Deku has gone above him, but he's going to take that step to reach his level as well. I mean, it wasn't enough in the end because he got his arm snapped, and then we got the quirk awakening though, which was badass, moving faster than we've ever seen him move before. Seeing all the sweat off his body, making him do these little explosions that are just launching him all over the place as he's putting his all into battling Shigaraki, even making Shigaraki a little scared at a moment as he keeps getting blasted in the face. But I loved it because it showed so many good parts where he's now understands where Deku's coming from, how Deku has been hurting himself every time he fights. He still wants to catch up to him by saying, "Izuku, I can still catch up to you." Having that great moment, which was also definitely a foreshadow for what was to come right after with his heart exploding. But it was great to see those moments until he got blasted to the ground and killed. Well, at least killed for a second there until they tried to repair him. But that was insane. Like, that was probably one of the most insane moments from the season, was Bakugo getting absolutely wrecked by using his quirk to the fullest and also taking on Shigaraki at the same time. Like, it was kind of depressing. He's the only one that's got that brutally wounded in this fight. Everyone else kind of They got hurt, but not that bad. Except maybe Uraraka, but she at least got stitched up by her enemy and gave blood, so she's gonna be fine. I mean, then there was also Mirko. She might have ripped off her own arm after Shigaraki got a hold of it, but hey, she was still gone. She was a beast. It was great to see the big three come in to have their moment to shine. I didn't realize they were all gonna be there, but it's great to see Togata come in as the messenger, being able to move around everything. Joins the fight to save Bakugo, with Hado and Amajiki coming in as well. Amajiki doing some freaking hybrid and super move, using Hado's power and a bunch of animals to send a giant beam at Shigaraki. That was something I did not realize this man could do. But his powers are actually pretty powerful if he's able to do things like this. And it was even fun seeing Hado and them become friends and how they became best friends. Like, just a little moment here to show where they came from. Honestly, was fully expecting them to die there or get really hurt, because why would you show us their backstory of them becoming friends for nothing really bad to happen? However, to be fair, that moment did lead into Togata bringing up Shigaraki's friends, kind of pointing to the fact that this is a traumatized child inside this creature that's being turned and used by All For One, being like a little puppet. Tomura inside is still a kid. He's still a child, he had friends, and he's still pushing back against All For One for taking over his body. Like, just overall, the battle between Shigaraki was great, just kind of giving us all these different moments. And then when we catch up with Bakugo being saved by Best Genius and Edgeshot, that was cool. Wasn't expecting Edgeshot to sacrifice his entire life to save Bakugo, but hey, the heroes lived a long life. It's time to save the younger generation so they can become better heroes. Honestly, the hero moments just continue to be awesome. And the one thing I never understood about Edgeshot going inside to save his body, though, or save his heart, is what happens if Edgeshot dies? If he becomes Bakugo's heart, does Bakugo die if Edgeshot dies? Does he get absorbed by the body and become part of him, so that instead of being a human anymore, he's just an organ? Didn't explain that. Doesn't really make sense. Still insane to watch him go and try to save Bakugo's life. Great moments. And then Deku comes in to save the day like always. But we'll talk about Deku versus Shigaraki in a little bit. But the next one I want to talk about is Shoji and Koda versus Spinner, and the discrimination that they really dealt with in their 2 episodes. And the thing that made these episodes so freaking great is how they dealt with discrimination, because that's what it was focused on with the heteromorphs, focusing on their troubles and what they went through and why they're so rageful and why they're revolting. It's all because of them being discriminated on by society. And we even see this where Koda is seen as a traitor to their kind because he's helping the heroes. He's not starting this revolution, helping Spinner and going after them. He's just a city kid who doesn't understand the discrimination that the people in the outer areas have to deal with. But he pushes past everything to help Shoji in his fight, leveling up. And I'm assuming this might be a quirk awakening for him as well, but he gets the moment to shine, calling in the birds to help, giving this character moments that I honestly never thought would get a character moment. To get a hero moment, Koda gets one. I love this so much because we learn more about Shoji as well, because Shoji had to deal with the discrimination. He was hated on because of how he looked. And the reason he looked different. He was beat up. He was abused. The scars he has are from all that. Scars that we never saw before because he always wore masks to hide them. And he saved a little girl. He saved her life, but he was assaulted because of it. In the end, the great thing is that little girl understood what happened to him and still saw him as a hero because he saved her. He saved her at the risk of being beaten up. And the normal people just treated the heteromorphs so freaking bad, even though they were just normal people. Just because they looked different, they were racist and they're discriminatory, and it was terrible for them growing up. But instead of using that hatred, having it fuel him to become something evil, he became good because he wanted to show the world that he's a hero, that heteromorphs are normal people as well, and that they're here and they're living in society with them. Why should you be scared of them? They're still human. Just because they look different doesn't mean that means anything else. They just happen to get a quirk that turned them into whatever they got turned into. But still, like, it's not their fault they look like that. Everyone has quirks. Their quirk just happened to turn them into something else. Honestly, it's one of the things I get rageful over in this anime is the discrimination I see for the stupidest things. I'm like, I hate society. This is what's wrong with society, people like you. But it does do a great job making you feel that pain, making you watch them as our heroes struggle and do better than the villains who could have done the same thing, but they didn't. I love that Shoji got his time to shine, giving the words of wisdom, talking about how them attacking this hospital is going to set their kind 30 years because people are going to look at them like the enemy. They're all revolting against the normal people, going and attacking. But Shoji ends up being the voice of reason, especially once they saw the doctors, the innocent people, protecting the patients who shouldn't be involved in this at all, which is the moment that makes them all realize, wait, shit, we're the wrong one. Spinner, of course, keeps going because he's a hulking monster at this point that All For One has turned into this giant villain. He's also been fueled by his hatred. he never had anyone to see past that, and because of what All For One did to him, he wants to fight for his friends. He wants to continue to go, even though he got turned into this monster and definitely had something implanted in him to turn him a little bit more evil. All he wanted to do was save the day in the end. But Shoji, he was able to reach out to the people, making them realize that even saying the feelings they have aren't bad. They deserve to have those feelings. They should have those feelings. They shouldn't just roll over because people are discriminating on them. They should understand what they're feeling. Bring the people that hurt them into the light so that they can be recognized as people that are terrible, because that eventually that light will spread and change those people who hurt them. It will make people realize that they're not so different, that they're all alike, and that not everyone is as bad as this weird picture makes them seem. And in the end, all those people who were terrible to them will be ashamed of themselves, because they will be seen as the enemy and the ones that are the bad people and not the people who just look different. But they weren't able to stop Spinner from getting to Kurogiri to help save the other villains. Because again, that's all Spinner wanted to do. He wanted to help his friends, but he was molded by the hate that he had inside him. That was also kind of the moment where we got to see that Kurogiri with kind of half Nomu and half Aizawa and President Mike's friend still. Like, he's still in there. He's not fully evil, because he does save Aizawa by the end when he's falling to his death. He does save him. I don't think we actually saw anything happen after that. But it was great to see the moment where, like, okay, Kurogiri, he might be a villain, but he still has that, he has like a broken psyche. He's still part of himself. That kid is still in there. I am curious to know if we're going to learn more about him in the next season, because it would be cool to find out if he's kind of turned sides and if he's, he's helping the villains, but he's also going to help the heroes because of the broken psyche going flip-flopping back and forth. Very curious to find out more about him. And as we continue with My Hero Academia Season 7, we got to talk about the big fight of them all. Deku versus Shigaraki and Deku's final quirk. And surprisingly, there's not as much to talk about in this section as there normally would be, because they kind of only had a couple episodes to them and they focused on so many other characters during this season that Deku and Shigaraki wasn't as big as it's supposed to be. Because obviously, that's all happening next season, because that's going to be the final fight between both of them, and it's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. But it was awesome to see Deku fly in to save the day. And my note I have written down is Deku is here to fuck shit up. That explains how hyped I was when we watched that part of the episode. But it was great to see it. However, when Deku comes in, he almost loses his cool. He looks like a monster for a second because he saw what happened to his friend. He's down on the ground dying, and he's going to lose his shit, but he has to stay calm. And I love that Lemillion's the one that calms him down, makes him remember to use his rage as a tool and not let it control him. So awesome to see him kind of get those moments to really take a moment, become the hero he's supposed to. Don't let his rage control him, like in the Paranormal Liberation arc, to think clearly, otherwise more people are going to get hurt. And I love that they talk about how no one's given up yet, nothing's lost yet, and that heroes have to be heroes in their words. So just like really good moments to show who they are and what they mean to each other. And that's when we learn about the next quirk, which is the gear shift quirk from the second vestige, the one that they kind of had mysteriously around the entire time. And his gear shift quirk is so interesting, the fact that it controls the speed of objects, but since it's evolved because of one for all, now it does it cell by cell and can speed up Deku. Like, I was insane, just watching him shift himself and just speed up and just punch the crap out of Shigaraki. That was a badass moment. That quirk is pretty cool, but it has its limits, of course. In the end, though, it shows how much Deku has grown, because he's able to use the other quirks in unison to kind of go off combo attacks, like using Black Whip and Fa Jin together. Like, these are really good moments to see how much Deku has learned over the last 2 seasons about how to use these other quirks, about how to use them properly and how to use them in combat strategically. And I love in these moments where Deku finds out that Shigaraki and All For One haven't fully merged yet. And by fighting him, it's shaken up the balance between them. So Deku knows he has a chance of saving young Tomura. He has a chance to save that crying kid inside Shigaraki. So I love that, because it's just these hero moments. Well, until Kurogiri shows up, Eraser gets knocked out, Shigaraki is awakening. But yet again, we got another moment where Shigaraki knew All For One wanted to take over his body and refused to let that happen, hiding a small part of him in his heart. So it just shows again how Shigaraki has his own goals. He wants to destroy everything that's in connection to his home, to his grandmother, to his father, everything he wants to destroy, because his family, well, traumatized him and turned him into what he is. So I just love how this anime pushes his character forward too. He has some character development. It's showing more in each kind of part of this season, kind of kept giving us moments for Shigaraki not being just All For One, but being both of them at the same time, and how Shigaraki's personality was breaking through because he wasn't going to let All For One take control of him. But now to talk about the rest of that fight with Deku and Shigaraki, we have to talk about the villains who became heroes, with Gentle Criminal and Lady Nagant coming in for the save. Because as everything kind of goes to shit with the coffin in the sky, we get it all taken over by La Brava coming in for the save. Another villain who was taken into the good side by the heroes and used as part of their plan. But I love the reason why Gentle Criminal was there. When the prisoners were getting broken out of jail, he stopped them. He knew that they had to pay for their crimes, and he was in prison to pay for his crimes. He was there to be better. He wanted to be better after meeting Deku. And I love that he never thought he would get a second chance, but Deku showed him another way. Like, Given this man who had an accident happen to him, thought his life was over, he was never going to be a hero. And now because he met Deku, he got that chance to be a hero. He got taken in. He made all these mistakes, but he was going to use those mistakes to be better. I love it because he was inspired by Deku to be someone who wants to show them a bright future. And he needs to repay Deku, so he must save Deku with all his power. And I love it. It's so great to watch this villain. He wasn't really a villain. He was just a little criminal. He wasn't anything terrible. He became better because of Deku, just that hero spirit affecting other people around them. Because no matter how far they go, villains are still human. And we need to look at that part of them. Because they're not all evil monsters. Some of them just make mistakes. And they could always be better. And I do love how the gentle criminal got his time to shine with the world as well. Because the business news are recording it. They're showing the world what these villains are doing. They're not all evil that he's helping. They're saving the day. And this is going to show the truth about what happened here. People are going to know exactly what events took place, and there's nothing going to be hiding up who helped and who didn't. So I really like that they did that. And then we had Lady Nagan come in for the goddamn save, making so that Shigaraki could not touch the ground, blasting that goddamn arm off. And I love that the doctors and heroes let her go help because they trust in Deku. She came to join the fight because Deku asked her to in that initial interaction. Honestly, I thought she was gone. Thought she was going to be a little bit more burnt to the crisp after she blew up last season. But it was great to see her, that darkness in her, kind of have a light shined into it. She broke out of the darkness. She came to the light, and she's going to be here to help the heroes out. Honestly, love that moment. Both Gentle Criminal and Lady Nagan coming in were my favorite moments from the season. Just having these villains get redemption, getting these time to shine, and being a hero. But now let's put a pause in the Deku versus Shigaraki stuff, because now we got to go to All for One versus everyone else. And that's where literally everything went to shit, because we had Shiketsu High coming in. Honestly, never expected to see them come back again for a while, but they came in for a great save, all fighting back against All for One and saving Hawks' life. Just awesome moment seeing these heroes work together and try to fight against the mass army of Twice that are falling all over them because Toga had drank in Twice's blood, started doing what Twice was planning to do the entire time, but Hawks' plan failed, even though killing Twice meant nothing in the end because Toga was still able to do the Sad Man Parade. But that was insane. And then just having everyone fighting against All for One with all the Twice drowning them all. An actual great moment to watch because it just showed how powerful All for One was as he just blasts everyone around him. But I do love during the moment while they're fighting All for One, where All for One kind of questions the heroes because they never lived in an age where he ruled. They weren't scared of him like other people's were. Instead, they lived during the age of All Might, the age where there was hope everywhere. There was an age of peace. People were more willing to stand up to be a hero than when he was because they were scared of him. But All Might instead inspired all of them to do better. With the Doomsday Quirk theory, every year, quirks get stronger and stronger and stronger as people age and new people come into the world and the quirks go on top of each other with different people having kids, which it kind of makes it so All for One might not fully realize how strong some of these people might be because they just have generations of quirks adapting in them. They're getting stronger. Instead of being in fear, they're in hope. They're fighting back. They think they can win. Which, of course, he's arrogant. He's thinking, nothing's going to matter. It's going to be fine. I'm stronger than all of them. He doesn't realize there's a hero spirit in all these people, and they're just going to keep going and going until they're dead. No matter what, they're going to save the people around them. And I think that just screams a lot about what it means to be a hero, what All Might has done for this world, and, what the evil villain was not prepared for. And this is also the moment where we got a great moment where Tokiyami gets his time to shine, where he has a giant dark shadow and just decks All for One into the ground. Like, that was great. That was awesome. I love seeing Dark Shadow get these really cool moves being done to him. And also knowing that All for One cannot take Tokiyami's Dark Shadow because he has to touch Tokiyami and not Dark Shadow. So showing how his shadow can be a great tool to go against him. But of course, that led into the Gigantomachia stuff and the Shinso stuff. But before we get into that big battle, we're going to talk about how Mina saved Shinso because she definitely killed that sludge guy. The guy came back. He was all upset because he wanted to join the winning side and he got acid mixed in with his sludge. He definitely died. There's no way. She killed a man. But it was great to see how she leveled up since the Paranormal Liberation War arc because she almost got taken out. Kirishima saved her, but this time she had to be the one to save them. She had to be standing up because she didn't want to stand in the sidelines. She wanted to be that hero. And I love that she went to Bakugo and Todoroki to get some training to be a little bit stronger. And it was awesome to see Mina get her time to shine. Literally almost all Class 1A got their time to shine. They all got great moments. Well, most of them. I'm sure of it that we're going to see more next season because we're not done the war. And not all of them got their time to shine, so we got a few more to go through. But it was great to see Shinto controlling Gigantomachia because it shows what Shinto can do. He's controlling a freaking monster. Well, at least it seems like he's controlling a monster until Gigantomachia completely turns on All for One because he's mad for being abandoned. He felt betrayed and fought back against his master because his master just ditched him. Which, fair enough. Hey, All for One's a terrible person. Of course you're going to betray him when he just throws you aside like a piece of trash. And I love how Shinto turns around and says, he can control people, but not their hearts. That's why Deku was able to break free, and now Gigantomachia was as well. But unfortunately, none of that was good enough, because All For One just takes the blows and sends all the heroes flying, because he keeps regenerating because of Aries' quirk. And when all the heroes are down for the count, he still talks his quirk, and he even talks about taking Tokiyami's, but Mineta. Somehow Mineta gets a goddamn moment to stand up and be like, take mine instead, leave Dark Shadow alone. Tokiyami and Dark Shadow are together, you can't take his. And it's cool because you kind of see that Dark Shadow is part of Tokiyami. They're friends, they're kind of personalities, and you can't really take that away, or Tokiyami would feel empty. He would have nothing. I had someone point out in the comments that the reason All For One didn't take it because he was realizing, oh, I don't have enough time to be messing with these guys. I have to go to Shigaraki. I can't be wasting time here. But I also kind of feel like if he did try to take Dark Shadow would have fought back because it does have its own personality. It's not just a quirk, it's something else. And I think that's part of the reason, and I will stand by that because I think it's a pretty cool reason to realize All For One took it because it would have taken him too much time, and because he had little time, he couldn't waste it trying to fight with the quirk by taking it. But as we go forward into the fights, we got to talk about Dabi versus Endeavor versus the family. That was a great emotional episode. Like that whole moment, that episode, one of the best from the season, so by far. So good. And it's all because Dabi was going to explode and take everyone with him like a goddamn nuke, because all he was building up flame and power over and over. He was getting ready to die. Take everything with him. Everything his father liked. So that was dark, but also like a really good moment for Endeavor to realize what he has to do. He has to take his son, fly him away, and die with him. Also, his son won't die alone, which is kind of like that father atoning for his sins. He know he messed up, and you know what he can do is he can take himself out with his son in order to save everyone else he cares about, and make it so his son's not alone in his final moments, which is kind of touching. And in the moment, too, he's finally able to see his son like his son always wanted. But then Rei shows up, starts cooling him down to try to save her son from blowing up and killing everyone, but also blowing up and killing himself. So it was great to see that happens, and so does Natsuo and Fuyumi. So like the family's coming together to stop their brother, their son. Like they need to do it. And it's like this really emotional moment of the family that needs to stop them together. They see the son, the brother that they neglected, the one that they just never really listened to, the one they were never there for, and now they finally are. It's a little too late, but they're finally there for his final moment. And I love that Toya realizes that all he ever wanted was his family to be seen by his family, and it was that simple. But he was so consumed with hate for Endeavor after Endeavor left him to die that he never got to have that. Like, he could have been a proper family, fought with them, just like a normal family, been with them, but instead he let that hate fuel him, and he lost himself along the way. And then we got Shoto coming in to help the family with the goddamn awesome super speed moment with Ida, flying like no tomorrow to save the day, which was awesome. It also shows how Shoto grew as a hero, and he grew into the hero that he wanted to be, because he wanted to grow into that hero that his friends were like, to cry and get mad for others rather than himself. So I really love how that pushed him forward to save the day, stop his brother from exploding, freezing everything around them. But in the end, Toya was surrounded by family, and Endeavor was able to apologize to him for leaving him at the peak and not being there for him. Like, that was so emotional, having his father try to finally be able to talk to him, finally be able to say something to him, and apologize to the rest of his family for neglecting his kids for what he did, because he was a terrible father. But it was like this really good moment to show Toya getting to be with his family, realizing that what he wanted was so simple but never got it. But it's also a really good moment to show this villain who did everything in his power and was fueled by hate to kind of realize that he was wrong. He could have been better. There could have been more to it, but now it's too late. And at least he's surrounded by family in the end. Even though he hates them, I think a small part of him still cares about them. But let me know, what do you think about that episode? I think that was one of the best ones. Let me know if you thought it was the best ones. And now we'll go to one of the other best episodes from the season, which was Toga and Uraraka. And the reason I didn't call this Toga versus Uraraka, because there was a lot less versing, other than Toga just stabbing Uraraka and Uraraka just trying to get through to her, and us learning about Toga's backstory. And it's kind of sad to see that Toga was only turned into a real villain because of Hawk. He killed the one person she cared about, and that really turned her into what she was. She turned her into more of a monster. But Sue and Uraraka knew better. They were trying to get to her. Uraraka just wanted to talk to her, reach out, and talk about romance with this villain, fueled with rage. She just wanted to calm her down and understand her. And it was like really upsetting to find out about Toga's backstory as well, because of like, it's sad. The only reason she is this monster is because she was never allowed to smile because of her teeth. She was called a deviant, a monster who wasn't normal. Her parents tried to get rid of her quirk instead of teaching her how to deal with it. All she ever wanted was to feel accepted in this world and be who she wanted to be, but instead she was seen as a villain and turned into a villain because of it. Like, the fact that she thinks Uraraka is taking pity on her just because Uraraka wants to understand her and talk to her is sad, because Uraraka knows Toga's just never had anyone in her life to listen to her and talk to her and understand who she is. Uraraka knows she needs to do it, to reach out to Toga, to make her feel seen. And I love that we kind of got the moments where even though Uraraka got stabbed, she got beaten, she's still trying to just talk. That's all she's trying to do. She doesn't want to hurt anyone. She doesn't want to do anything. She's just trying to understand why Toga's doing what she's doing. And I love in the end where Uraraka is able to see Toga smile and calls her cute, showing Toga that even though everyone else might hate it, there are still people who will accept her for who she is. Plus, Uraraka got her quirk awakening during this, and it was pretty awesome having everything get lifted up in the air in the battle. And she also, when she's slowly dying on the ground, lowering everything because she refuses to drop anyone. Showing Uraraka's growth as a character, but also showing us this hero who refuses to follow the rules exactly. Hero versus villain, we just beat him up. Nope. She wants to talk to him, she wants to understand them, and she wants to care for them. What she realizes is that this was just a hurt kid. All Toga was the traumatized child who needed help. Uraraka grew up poor. She saw, and because of that, she wanted to become a hero to help out her family. But she realizes there are more people in this world who need that help and love as well. And that's why she fell in love with Deku, finally getting those words. And I love that this is the moment when we learn that Toga, the reason she fell in love with people so easily is because of their blood. And she liked Deku because he looked like a guy she used to like. But she could never ask that guy for his blood because otherwise she'd be seen as not human. And the only reason she went to the League of Villains is because they accepted her for who she was. And in the end of the day, that's all Toga ever wanted. She just wanted to be accepted and live her life the way she wanted to. Instead of being taught how to deal with her quirks, she was just abused and thrown away. So it's really sad to see how society, again, has ruined this person and turned them into what they were. And ironically, she could have had the world she wanted to live with after all the destruction the villains have caused. But she didn't want to lose Uraraka, the one person that cared about her. So as Uraraka's on the verge of death, Toga uses her quirk to save her by giving her her own blood. And the thing is, Toga lived the way she wanted to, all the way up until the end. And she wanted to save Uraraka. She wasn't going to let her die because Uraraka lifted her heart and made her happy for once. And if she'd known sooner that she could have had a life like this, maybe she wouldn't have went down this dark path. And it's just like these really good moments to show that Uraraka affected this villain. She helped her. All this villain wanted was to be accepted and loved. And when Uraraka finally gave her some of that, it stopped her from being that villain. So it just turns out that if you just listen to people and help them, maybe they won't be so evil. But then we got All Might versus All for One. That very short moment from the episode, but absolutely awesome. Because All Might is coming in with a goddamn mech suit to stop All for One. Or at least slow him down from getting to Deku so that he could regenerate into a baby. But I love it because All Might is here recording his final moments. He's going to show the world that he's quirkless and that he's going to take down the biggest villain of them all with a support item. Showing the world, too, that people without quirks can still be heroes. You don't have to be superpowered to stop villains. You can have a mech suit and you can stop them. It's honestly just showing anyone in the world that even if you don't have powers, you can still be a hero. You can still stand up for what's right. And I think that was really important to show. And I also love that he's using a mech that has all the Class 1A's quirks in it to help him fight back. And he has to fight with a smile on his face to show the world that he is there. And I think it's fantastic. It shows what kind of hero All Might is. And even though he's quirkless, he's still not backing down. And if he was afraid he was going to die, he wouldn't be there. Even though he did talk about it being his final moments, he also said he wasn't going to die. And I love learning that he was just like Deku, because he was quirkless. He had no quirks, but he still fought back against villains with a pipe. And even Shimura telling him that he couldn't be a hero. Same thing he did to Deku. But instead, he wanted to be a symbol of peace. He wanted to help the world. There was so much darkness and everything else. He wanted to give people hope. And that's what he did in the end. That's why he became what he was. And the same thing with Deku. He was quirkless. He told him he couldn't be a hero, but Deku refused to believe that. He still wanted to do it. And that's why Deku is so much like All Might. And I think it's like one of those things where you realize that there's so much more to why All Might chose Deku than what we originally thought because of his backstory. And I can't wait for next season because that's when we're going to see Shigaraki versus Deku and All Might versus All for One. Because that's what the end of the season ends on, with both of them doing that. But yeah, the season's over now, and I'm kind of curious to see if there's enough material to have a full 20-episode season, or if it's going to be shorter. I have heard the ending for the manga is a little rough, so I'm kind of not looking forward to that part. But I do want to see everything get animated and see what happens during it. The season had so many good moments focusing on the villains and having us sympathize with them, telling us why they returned into villains. And I really liked how they portrayed that and how they dealt with that. And then we have the heroes wanting to save them rather than just stop them. With Shoto, Deku, and Uraraka, and Shoji, they all wanted to stop the villain. They didn't want to beat him up. They didn't want to do that. They just wanted to talk them, understand them, and calm them down. So I like how it was more focused on like let's beating up the bad guys, throwing them in jail, and rather understanding them, talking to them, and making them calm down. And then having Deku's rage come out where he has to take on Shigaraki. That's going to be awesome to watch. While Deku goes against Shigaraki, it's going to be insane. And All Might's final stand is also going to be insane because I highly doubt he's going to make it out alive. But it's going to be pretty awesome to watch him go toe-to-toe with All for One with a mech suit, even more. So the season gave us a lot of good moments. There's so much more to come, and I cannot wait for the next season. Let me know, what did you think of My Hero Academia Season 7? Are there any moments you want to talk about in the comments that I didn't cover? Let me know, and we'll go over it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot, and you get to stay up to date with all my anime breakdowns, reactions, plus my Marvel and DC stuff. So thanks again. I'll talk to you later when we watch more anime.